Cheetahs side, the Cheetahs immediately, the diplomacy kicks is remarkably good up and under. So it's Okomaroja with the carry. The defense is looking outstanding. Comes away for right, and I think we are live. Yes, we are. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the live watch along between the Cheetahs and the Western Province. It has kicked off. We are just 30 seconds in, and the Cheetahs are already on the front foot. Sorry about the late start. Just making sure we had everything sorted and up and running. Right, let's just make sure we're all sorted. So having a couple of technical difficulties here, but I think we are still good and live. And a penalty for the Western Province as we just quickly sort out exactly what is going on. Out on the line, putting good line speed on, making good stop tackles, first time tackles. Right, so a good kick here from the Western Province. They get into the Cheetahs half for the first time thanks to a penalty. Welcome to everybody that is watching. Please let me know where you're watching from, who we're rooting for, score predictions. I think in the prediction I said Province by about 10. If I did actually give a prediction, there was one of the previews where I forgot to give a prediction, so it might have been this one, in fact. And a messy line from the Western Province, which gives the possession back to the Cheetahs. Meanwhile, in the Sharks versus Griquas game, which is happening at the same time, Griquas have scored first within the first half. So Tinas de Beer is lining up the kick conversion, and they could go up to 7-0 in just the first 2 minutes. Two games going on at the moment, so we'll try and keep on both. The focus game is the Western Province versus the Cheetahs, but the Griquas are 7-0 up against the Sharks in 2 minutes. So interesting to see what happens in that game there. Have to get the trusty notebook out and make sure we know exactly what's plotting in both games. So it looks like a fumble by Lukanya Am was a pretty poor pass, kicked through, and then jumped on by the Griquas. So that's a very good start for them. In the Cheetahs Western Province game, we've got the Cheetahs now with a defensive line out inside their own half, which is good. Goes to open Mahoje, a bit scrappy. And a good read there. That's pretty poor by the Cheetahs. And the Western Province tried to get drag him out, but the Cheetahs managed to keep it alive. In the meantime, let's have a look at the two teams for today, as the Cheetahs cleared down to further down in their half. Right, so if we look at the Cheetahs side, not too many changes from last weekend. Clayton Blomkeys keeps his place. Reno Smith, who was very impressive as he came off the bench, he comes into the starting line. Dries Waterpool and France will stay in the centres. Roscoe Speckman, Reynard Fortain, Ruben De Haas completes the back line, which is largely unchanged apart from Reno Smith. And then the loose trio of Jean-De Rudolph, Opamahoja, and Andisa and Sile, a very exciting loose trio. I think they'll develop into quite a good combination. The locks are Carl Vechner, who will captain the side, and Reniel Hugo. Kutam Chuno, Wilma Arnoldi has come in, and Bone Venter, who was in the team of the week last week, he keeps his place with a very good scrummaging performance against the Sharks. On the bench, we've got Louis van der Vestes and Cameron Dawson, Conrad van Vuren, Victor Sikete, Chris Massane, Tian Meyer, Howard Mnisi, and that's not Rainer Smith. Sorry, we'll have to just sort that out now. But no points here. Meanwhile, the Sharks game, it looks like it's all kicking off. So maybe we've got our focus on the wrong game at the moment. But the Griquas are currently 7-0. Sharks looking like they're trying to attack early there. Meanwhile, it looks like we could have our first points on the board in this game as Tim Sriel starts lining up a kick for the Western Province. It's a relatively simple kick, so it should be a good opportunity for him to get some points on the board. Meanwhile, let's find out what your score predictions are. Let's put them in the chat. Let me know who you are backing, where you're watching from. How was your festive season? First watch along of 2021, hopefully the one of many. And from straight in front, Tim Sriel converts that, and the Western Province draw first blood. Should be a very interesting game. A must-win game for the Cheetahs, as we know. Can't afford to slip up at all. A place in the semi-final could pretty much go for them if they don't get all the points here. So can't afford to start poorly. It didn't look too bad in the early stages, but Western Province do get the first points on the board. And that's a very good quick restart by Western Province, and Ricky Pretorius is driving. He gets up to the 22. He gets it away, and Herschel Yankees is over. That's a brilliant score from the Western Province from the kickoff. Some great hands, a great run from Ricky Pretorius, who had a very good offload, and then Herschel Yankees had the pace to go all the way. So a disaster start for the Cheetahs, who's from... Sorry, this is actually now going up, so Martin van der Westhuizen is having a look. Wants to check a knock-on earlier on in the move. But it could very well be the Western Province their first try straight from the kickoff, which would be a very good way to get the game going. Right, so it looks like it's knocked back from Andisa and Sile. Well, it comes down to the question. So if this is touched David Mayhazen and come off him, it will be a knock-on. Whereas if it's been judged to come off Andisa and Sile, then Rick Pretorius is allowed to play that ball, in which case the try will stand. So for the Cheetahs' sake, they'll definitely hope that it does look like it's come off Andisa and Sile. So it looks like Cheetahs have almost sort of...
So, just to confirm, initially off the Cheetah's hand back, and then it's touched the Western Province hand after that. So they've got a knock on after it's gone forward from the Western Province hand in the after correct, and then it's made by any offside position. So we're going for disallowed side.
Okay, so the try has been disallowed, and it's a penalty offside. Okay, so judged to have come off David Mayhazen, obviously, which then would have been a lock on, and because Rick Pretorius was standing in front, it is a penalty as well. So how's that for a turnaround? They thought they had a try, but instead the Cheetahs are going to go back, and in fact they're going to have a penalty in a very good area. Meanwhile, the Sharks have hit back against the Griquas. There's 5-7 there. We will try and keep you updated on both games as we try and monitor what is going on. Curran Bosch is currently lining up the conversion. Meanwhile, the Cheetahs have a penalty on their 22, and they're pointed to poles. France Stain's going to have an effort here. We saw how well he kicked last weekend. It was a great run by Rex Pretorius. It's unfortunate that it's going to be ruled out because it was a very nice try. But now the Cheetahs can level the game. So a good net result for the Cheetahs. But yeah, because it was a very good kick chase, actually, to be fair to them. And I think it would have been quite unfair that such a good kick chase and a very good restart from Clayton Blomkeys would have resulted in a Western Province try. That's a bit of an early warning that they can't afford to be too spread out on the kickoff. Yep, France Stain likes the look of that. He turns around, and that is Cheetahs level with Western Province within 10 meters. I think we're looking at the wrong game here. It's been a bit stop-start here for Cheetahs Western Province. Sharks game, however, looks like it's very high tempo. They're approaching the 10-minute mark. Sharks have got a penalty in the Griquas territory. It's 7-5 to the Griquas at the moment. Right, and restart well taken by Clayton Blomberkeys, and Ruben De Haas looks like he tries to keep that in field, in fact, which is a bit of a strange decision to make. So Willemse tracks back. Now here we go. Here comes the aerial battle. Western Province have favoured an aerial battle recently, but which is brave when you've got Clayton Blomberkeys, who's so devastating in the counter-attack. He, however, has put it onto the boot, and the ball stays inside. So Willemse will probably look to try and find touch within the Cheetahs' half, which he does. It's a bit of cat and mouse so far in the early stage of the game. Haven't had much to sort of judge on the two sides. The Cheetahs had more phases early on, and the Western Province had a very nice counter-track try from the kick-off, which was ruled out. But now the Western Province have an opportunity to actually start... Oh, sorry, the Cheetahs will have an opportunity now to get some go-forward ball and on the halfway line. Set pieces will be interesting today. We saw how the set pieces were an issue, have been an issue across the weekend on the Lions, struggling with their lineouts earlier in the game where they beat the Pumas. Wasn't a particularly good performance by the Lions, but the net result is what matters, and that's a very nice carry by Ndise and Sila, who gets up to the halfway line. And now Clayton Blomberkeys looks to dab over the top. He's turned Herschel Yankees, and that looks like a forward pass, yeah. Forward pass by Herschel Yankees. You will have our first scrum here in Bloemfontein. Meanwhile, the Greeks are doing well to keep the Sharks out of off their try line. Just too much rugby going on. I just didn't understand the scheduling with the entire weekend when you've got an entire Saturday while we've suddenly got 2 Currie Cup games going on at the same time. So yeah, we'll try keep you up to date with what's happening in both games. But our focus game obviously will be the Cheetahs versus the Western Province. Big scrum here. Bone Fencer scrum particularly well last weekend. He will be up against Frans Malherbe, so a big ask for him today. Stephen Kitsov has been terrific throughout the entire tournament, and he's up against Kuta Machuno, so a nice big opportunity for him to try and make a statement. And a reset. The same as last weekend with the Cheetahs. Just so many resets. Meanwhile, the Greekers are actually in the Sharks half within the 22 with a line-out, so a nice opportunity for them. I'd love to see the Greekers beat the Sharks. For no other reason, just because I think the Greekers have played well enough to deserve a victory over the tournament, and they just haven't been able to put in that sort of 80-minute performance, much like the Pumas. But yeah, and the Sharks have been poor at the moment, so it's a big game for them. Whilst it might have been, in theory, on paper, a very easy game, not an easy game, but a very winnable game against the Greekers, who have just got another penalty. And that's a short arm for Western Province. Looks like an early engagement from the Cheetahs, probably a bit over-eager there, try and make a point. But the set pieces will be interesting. We're still within 10 minutes, so feel free to get your score predictions in there. Jump in the chat. Let me know what you're thinking. Who are you backing? Fortunately, it doesn't look like too many 7 o'clock, well, no 7 o'clock kickoffs coming for a while because of curfew. So still have to wait and see what's going to happen with the games in the next week or two in terms of those late games.
Extended its bar and fencer. There you go, straight to ground. That's what real to you. Go straight to ground like that. That is a penalty, right?
So it looks like the ref has missed a penalty here, but it will be a reset. Western Province puts in at the moment for the scrum. Decent scrum by the Cheetahs who hold up. It's available there for the Western Province, but a decent scrum by the Cheetahs actually. That's a fantastic kick. Clayton Blomberkeys got that very, very wrong, and Damien Willemse managed to turn him, and suddenly the Cheetahs have been pinned back to within their 22, so they'll have a defensive line out. Or they'll take it quickly though. So that's a bit of innovation there from the Cheetahs, and actually well played to get them a bit further up the field. A quick line out was taken, and between Clayton Blomkeys and Oscar Speckton, they managed to get up to further up the field to the halfway line. So a nice bit of innovation there, because it would have been a defensive line out, and chances would have conceded a line out within their own half, but now have gone back to about the halfway line for a scrum. So currently 2 scrums on both games going on at the moment. Because as we said earlier, 7-5 up. Right, let's see how the scrum goes here. Looks like a better hit there, but Bowen Fenter has kept... Well, it's a penalty view of the Western Province. Bowen Fenter going down there. It looked like he was managing, well, riding the hit there from Frans Malherbe, but is judged to have gone down. So it is a penalty to the Western Province in a kickable position, just inside the half. But they are going for the line, which I'm not sure is the best idea. If you go back about a week, Sharks in similar situations kept putting down the points, and they came back to haunt them in the end. So I'm not sure it's the best decision by the Western Province, but they're backing themselves. Going to back their set piece here early on. So it's a good take by West Province. You served them all and not getting much go forward ball though. This has been impressive in the early stages here from the Cheetahs pack. And Hershey Yankees has to use it, so that's well done by the Cheetahs. And now that's a good round run. And a knock on. Yeah, the Cheetahs are up for this. John Rudolph showing how important he is. A nice big hit in the midfield there. On Yakutsia here. So Western Province managed to set them all, but the Cheetahs pack so far has held up. And I think that's going to be the best thing. If the Cheetahs are going to look to try and get any sort of result out of this game, they're going to need, the pack's going to need to really step up, and they're going to have to front up against the Western Province. And I always said, I mean, the Western Province, their pack is should be their secret weapon. A lot of bulk, a lot of experience, especially in the front row. But so far, the Cheetahs have been up for it, and they'll have a scrum inside their half. Jean Rudolph's been a fantastic acquisition for the Cheetahs. Man of the match last weekend, a big hit there now. And I mean, the way he was playing for the Pumas before he got signed, it was only a matter of time before he did get picked up by one of the unions. And in fact, I think, depending on what happens with the Cheetahs, it wouldn't surprise me if he looks to move somewhere else in the near future as well. And the Cheetahs have won a scrum penalty, so this is turning into a very interesting battle, actually. Yeah, Bowen Fenter there so far has looked quite good against Frans Malherbe, who is a Springbok world champion. So if you ever want to sort of match yourself against the best in the world, all you have to do is play against the Western Province, because that is currently the World Cup winning front row. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk that Bowen Fenter's been offered a deal overseas because of his scrummaging, and to be fair, in the early stages of here, you're starting to see why. Scrums very well so far. The Sharks, meanwhile, look like they are struggling against the Greek. Was almost 20 points, 20 minutes into that side. It's a bit messy, and it's been another knock-on. So not the greatest game to watch so far between the Cheetahs and the Western Province. Quite a few areas, a couple of handling areas early on. So it hasn't been great watching, but the set pieces have been quite an interesting battle. So I suppose we'll welcome a few scrums and see how it all works out.
Jody seconding at 2 meters 3. There's some talks over this.
Yeah, possession 52% for the Cheetahs so far, 48% for the Western Province. 3-3. It's been quite an even contest so far. Not much splitting the two teams. Right, now penalty for the Western Province for the scrum, but it is very even. This is something I didn't predict, to be honest. Scrums are going both ways here. Scrums are holding up quite well. And it's literally been going, yeah, one Cheetahs, one to Western Province. So it's a nice scrum battle developing here. Tim Sweel finds a touch in the Cheetahs half. Meanwhile, the Griquas had a penalty, and that might be the worst penalty attempt I've ever seen from Tennis de Beer. As the Sharks look to be struggling a little bit against the Griquas down in Durban. Western Province opting not to go for the maul, trying to bring their backline into it. Been a good defensive read so far. Willemse tries to turn to got an advantage, so West Province will go back for the penalty. Yeah, a bit disjointed at the moment. Both sides just sort of struggling to really penetrate each other. A penalty here for the West Province straight in front, and I'm sure they'll go for poles this time. I think it would be a mistake not to. Because this is what the Sharks didn't do last weekend. They had some chances to kick for poles, didn't take them, and it came back to haunt them a little bit, but Tim Sweel's got the tee out, and he will have a shot at goal. Meanwhile, I tell you, every single time I look at this Griquas Sharks game, it does look like the Griquas are on top, so credit to them. In fact, I'm sure we can get a scoreboard down at the bottom there for the other game as well. As Tim Sweel has no issues with that. Right, so Western Province, they take the lead with 6 points to 3. Not much separating the two sides at the moment, but in a very, very good context. Not a great restart there. Well, from the Western Province, there is a knock on. Yeah, and just not a it's been a bit stop-start. Lots of set pieces. So I mean, the front row is going to be very tired in this first 20 minutes. They've had to work very hard so far. Now, Western Province kicked downfield, and Lomikis tries to counter-attack. Met well, though, and now the Cheetahs will probably put it onto the boot. Right, Willemse also the kicks, a little bit of ping-pong at the moment. We just try and sort out a scoreboard for the other game there. Right, there we go. That'll help out a bit, I think. So we'll keep that scoreboard clicking at the bottom there for the Sharks Griquas game. So if you're not watching the game, you can at least keep up with what is going there. It does look like the Sharks are battling a bit against the Griquas. Meanwhile, in Bloemfontein, a very even contest at the moment. Not much happening here. Frans Steyn barking out orders. You can see his leadership coming through there. We've got time off here for an injury. So let me get this time. Right, so water break there. So let's have a look at what's happening in the Sharks game, which looks a bit messy as well, to be honest. Sharks currently within their own half, just turned the ball over. Now, if the Griquas do pull off a victory and the Cheetahs can beat the Western Province, that blows the entire tournament wide open. So, yeah, as it stands, Bulls on 35 points. Western Province will join them on 35 points. The Lions will have 33, Sharks 28, Cheetahs 27. Right, I'm going to restart here with a line out to the Western Province inside the Cheetahs half. They went for a maul up front first time, didn't really work, so they haven't really gone back to it yet, and that's a messy line out, but Tim Swiel has cleaned up a bit. So the line out's been a bit messy here for West Province. It's the first one they haven't gathered, but hasn't quite been going to plan. That's a big hit on Willemse by Bowen Venter. It's a very nice defensive read. Right, Cheetahs offside there, which will allow... It's inside the half, so the Western Province will probably have another go at this, to be honest. Meanwhile, the Sharks are on the try line against the Griquas. Yeah, it looks like they're waiting for a tee to come on here. So it looks like that Tim Swiel is going to have another go. Try and stretch the points here. So, and this is what I say. This is why the Western Province needs to take the points, because that's what the Sharks were guilty of not doing last weekend. And that's why the Cheetahs managed to stretch a bit of a lead. But the Western Province looking for the points again. Meanwhile, the Sharks are over. Cohen Bosch, a great cross kick to Werner Koch. Up against James Verity. Gets the better of him. And the Sharks are on the board. So it looks like we could be changing the scoreboard for both sides at the moment. Flag straight down, so that's a miss by Tim Swiel, which is not what they would have wanted. And it's a long kick by mistake, driving the Western Province back into their half. Tim Swiel's going to go to the boot. He hooks it up, but the kick chase hasn't been great. Gone to the boot a few times, but without a decent chase, you know, Clayton Blomik, he's going to have a lot of time to decide what he wants to do. He switched it to France Day, and it looks like we're going to continue having a bit of a kicking battle. So a bit like a game of chess so far. Neither side really wants to take too much ownership over what they want to do. There's been a knock-on here, so the Western Province have a knock-on advantage. There we go. Rickard Pretorius goes through. Oh, and he almost gets the pass away. It's been knocked back. Advantage over, but the Western Province have kept possession. Herschel Yankee's probably guilty of keeping the ball a bit too long. Still a bit messy at the moment. Western Province have got an advantage here. Cheetahs are all over that ball though, so I don't think they're going to get much up here. Right, and the penalty, and the whistle goes for the penalty, so they'll move back there. Sharks have converted that opportunity, so we're going to sort out the scoreboard there. Okay, so this is a very kickable position for the Western Province. I'm sure that Tim Swiel is going to have a go and just get that scoreboard going off again. I'm just going to sort out the Sharks Greekwood scoreboard. Everything's happening here at the moment. So that was what we got at the moment. So Tim Swiel lines up for another kick here. Sharks are back ahead of the Greekwood for the first time in the game, and no problems there for Tim Swiel. He adds the extras, and the Western Province taking their opportunities here. Hasn't been, I wouldn't say the Cheetahs have played badly at all. It's been quite an even game so far, but the Western Province just making sure that they're trying to take the points on offer. And Cheetahs, if they don't sort the discipline out, suddenly this game gets a bit away from them. Lots of penalties creeping in for the penalty, so discipline could cost them today unless they sort that out. Also, restarts are very important. So Clayton Blomeke has always got a very good restart on him, so important that the Western Province do catch this and keep it in hand, which they do through Joanna Augustus. I think it's about the first time he's actually had a run. Very nice ball carrier there for the Western Province. Supposedly the replacement, the heir-to-be of Dwayne Vermeulen's throne. So, and he plays a very nice rugby, to be credited to him. Getting a lot better as the competition goes. Now, penalty to the Cheetahs. So, yeah, I mean, both sides have had pretty much as much opportunity as the others. So, it's quite a nice even contest at the moment. And now France Dane's going to try and impose his boot on the game. It's within his half. But we know that distance is never going to be an issue when it comes to France Dane. So, very interesting to see how he does here. Big hit there from Jack Kutsia and Dan Duplessis on Roscoe Speckman. Right, 59 meters. That won't be an issue with France Dane. He lines it up. Well, as usual, it's certainly got the distance. It looks like it's got the direction. It does indeed. That goes over without any issues, and the Cheetahs strike back. So, very tight game, and the scoreboard reflects it so far. Just 3 points separating the team in the first opening 30 minutes. Not much attacking rugby so far, but a nice contest growing. Very little separate both sides and across the board. You know, set pieces are quite even so far. Haven't been too many missed tackles, but a nice contest actually. It's been a bit. It almost feels like a playoff game, which for the Cheetahs it really is. It literally is basically a quarter-final for them. They cannot afford to lose this game, especially if the Sharks do beat the Greekwood. Although it looks like that's not going to be the easiest of things for them. Having said that, the Sharks are over. That's a big mistake from Tennis de Beer. A kick ahead by the Sharks, and now Penke was flying down the wing. Tennis de Beer gets there first, but somehow manages to sort of leave the ball behind in play, and Yao Penke pretty much picks it up and dives over. So the Sharks are over for their second try of the day to extend their lead over the Greekwood. Meanwhile, on the main game, Western Province have a line-out, and it's another scrappy one which Tim Swiel tries to clean up, but it is a knock-on for the Cheetahs. Yeah, you do feel for Tennis de Beer. He came flying off onto the wing there and just managed to basically dive over the ball almost. Yeah, so that's been becoming an issue bit for the Western Province. Haven't had the greatest lineout. Even when I think it's been about 3 overthrows now. Even when they have set the lineouts, the maul hasn't been really working. So I think the Western Province just need to keep it a bit simple here. Because, yeah, set pieces, I mean, the scrums are very even. You know, we've seen both sides really sort of have their fair share of penalties. And giving away a penalty and conceding them as well. So another scrum here, and that's the West. Now that's what we sort of expected, a huge scrum from the Western Province, and that's where the scrum dominance comes in. And I think, to be fair, the Cheetahs managed the first couple, but that scrum dominance was always going to come through eventually from the Western Province. Meanwhile, Cohen Bosch has added the extras in the other game, which means it's 19-7 to the Sharks down in Durban. Right, so let's sort out. It's very complicated trying to do two scoreboards at the moment. Right, so Tim Sweel lining up another kick. Feels like test match rugby here. It's very tight, not too much enterprise, and that the flags go up there. No issues. A nice kick there from Tim Sweel. And the Western Province re-established that 6-point advantage. Meanwhile, the Sharks look like they're starting to turn things up in Durban. They're all over the groups at the moment. And if they can get another try here, it could suddenly get a bit ugly, to be honest. The restart is once again. Oh, that looks like that could be that. No, look, I think it's deemed to go straight out, or has it? Went out in the full. Whether this has been touched. Yeah, it has been touched. So I think it's been touched from Reno Smith. I'm not sure where it touched him, to be fair. So I don't know if that's going to be a knock on, or if it's going to be judged to have come off. Yeah, so a knock on here. So the Western Province will have a scrum. And after that, other scrum, a nice chance for them. I mean, and this is where your scrum becomes a big weapon. Because when you can suddenly start using, instead of having to worry about a sort of a way out, you can just sort of scrum your way to a penalty. It becomes a huge opportunity. I mean, that's you talk about exit strategy. Having a scrum which can dominate and win your penalty 9 times out of 10 becomes a fantastic way to get yourself out of the danger position. Right, so Tinus de Beer's day is having a nightmare. First of all, he couldn't get that ball out, and now in trying to kick, he's been tackled in pretty much mid kick by Henko Venter with the ball going forward. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. Meanwhile, the Western Province have won another scrum penalty. And this is what I was talking about. When you talk about the exit strategy, when you have such a powerful scrum and you can use it to get out, it becomes a massive boost. And yeah, the Cheetah scrum really now starting to take a bit of a hit from the West Province, but that ball has been kept in by Randall Smith. So nice work there from the wing. Now he's looking to try and run. He goes across kick. There's a lot of Cheetahs players out there. It's a good read from Damian Willemse. This is better. Both sides now trying to... Oh, and it's a penalty to the Cheetahs in their half. So not quite kickable. That was well played. Randall Smith did very well to keep the ball in touch. A cross kick there, which was well read by Damian Willemse, but a nice rush defense there by Roscoe Speckman meant that David Mayer has been penalized for a side entry and trying to come and help clean up that ruck. Very highly rated as David Mayer, and apparently got a very big offer waiting for him in Scotland. Well, Francois Tate's going to have a go at this. With the angle, this will be over 60 meters, but hey, I mean, it's Francois Steyn, so he does what he wants. 60 meters apparently. Which I think it's a bit more. I suppose the meter in. I think it's about 60, but probably more 60 meters. Yeah, the distance is not the issue. Yeah, and the flags go up, and he's nailed that. I mean, that is such a big thing to have. When you've got a kick like that, I mean, you can't afford to give penalties anyway away within from your 10-meter line, really.
Conceded by the Cheetahs, ball by Western Province. Making it setting up, should I say. Botan had to move quickly there.
Yeah, a good extra strategy play from the Cheetahs, and that's underrated, to be honest. To be able to kick the ball, spread a couple of passes, and find touch, be able to get out. I mean, it sounds so blooming basic, but it has been an issue across the competition with teams being unable to regather kickoffs effectively, and it just comes back to haunt you in the end there. Yeah, and we look at another forward pass here. Hershey Yankees struggling a couple of the weeks. Tim Swiel here, who's at fault here, and just Jackets here running in front of him. But just on Hershey Yankees, I mean, he's been almost had a great try earlier, but it's been interesting because I think that post lockdown, it's probably been a little bit off, not off the pace, but a bit disappointing. Discipline starting to creep into his game, or ill discipline rather. So hopefully you could try and see a nice game from him, because I think, you know, you burst into the scene was so exciting, and sometimes it does take a while, you know, to regather consistency, because sometimes you almost don't live up to the hype, well, not necessarily live up to the hype, but teams start to figure you out a little bit more, and you get analyzed more, whereas, you know, it was something quite different when he first came onto the scene. So now he has to sort of refine his game, and you see that with everyone, really. But a huge scrum there from the Western Province, and they've actually won it there with an advantage. And now let's see what they can do. The 40 minutes is up. So they're going wide. Angela Davis just had next to nothing to do. And now Yakasia's got it. So they're well into the Cheetahs half here. He's managed to keep himself in. Big opportunity here for the Western Province. They can score points before here. It'll be a big boost. So now the Cheetahs just hanging on. That's a high tackle. And they go back for a penalty. I don't think it'll... Try and see where it is, whether it'll be in Tim Swiel's range. So the penalty on the halfway line. Interesting to see. Dan Duplessis is down, receiving treatment. So big call here for the Western Province. The time is off. Although we are over 40 minutes, so it doesn't really matter by the time. This will be the last play regardless of what happens. Meanwhile, for the Sharks, it looks like a replacement coming on. I think it's Mark Kumbarai was receiving a little bit of treatment. 19-7 there down in Durban. There's still about a minute and a half to play. Looked like Eagles were playing quite nicely in the first sort of opening stages, but the Sharks have come back and are well in the driving seat. If they can get into the half-time with the score, I think they'll be quite happy. That's not a good side at all, as Dan Duplessis walks off. Looks like cutting his lip, being helped with a bit there. Looks a bit dizzy, so I'm sure he's going off for a concussion test. So going to the line there. Western Province trying to score some points before half time. So a nice opportunity for them here. Lineouts haven't been great. So I think, for them, probably try and keep it nice and simple here. And they do go to the front of the lineout. And that is, and they're over. That's pretty poor defending by Ruben de Haas. Decent lineout by the Western Province. And Yakatia just steamrolls straight over Ruben de Haas and dives over. So the last thing the Cheetahs needed, but everything that the Western Province needed. And unfortunately, look, I mean, you look at the size difference, but you've got to do better here, Ruben de Haas, because he had the opportunity and he's just completely pushed aside by Yakatia, then dives over. Right, Tim Swell kicked well so far. And he's pulled that to the left. So it will enter half time. 17-9 to the Western Province. A very interesting half, lots of takeaways there. Set pieces. The Western Province did grow into the game. The Cheetahs started off quite nicely. We're handling it at scrum time, which is always going to be the biggest sort of battle. But the Western Province have grown into the game, and I think that they've got the dominance there in the scrum time. If they keep using that, then that will probably be enough. But the Cheetahs are keeping themselves in the game. Probably need to be a bit more clinical, need to be able to try and counter that scrum somehow. I don't quite know how you do it. Meanwhile, there's a TMO decision in the Sharks game. Dennis De Beers once again involved, and it looks like Yokanya has gotten his hand below the Greek quiz flower half, and that could be a try for the Sharks in the dying stages of that half there. Right, trying to see. No, it looks like Lecanio's gums got there. His hand's definitely below. Is there pressure? There's definitely pressure. This is going to be a try for the Sharks. So, the Greek was started off well, but have not responded particularly well since then. And the Sharks weathered a bit of a storm. Weren't quite clinical enough in the first stages, but they do look like they will be heading into the shed with another try, which will put them well in control in Durban. And they're still talking about this. They finally awarded the try to the Sharks. Lekanya is on the board there in Durban. So that makes it 24-7 with a kick to come on the halfway stages down there in Durban. So it's been an interesting match on both sides. The Sharks struggled initially, but I think from the looks, it's been pretty much all Sharks one-way traffic since then. The Greek was trying to hold on, but at the end of the day, I think the Sharks are just too good, and the Greek has been the issue throughout the tournament. They've got moments they can play in stages and phases, but they just don't have the squad to compete, and that's exactly what we're seeing in Durban right now. As Curran Bosch lines up the conversion. Right. Right, let me just update the other scoreboard there. It's just all going on at the moment. A bit of a weird way to do things with two matches at the same time. But let me know what you thought of either game, depending on which games you're watching. My main focus game has been the Cheetahs versus the Western Province. But if you're watching the Sharks Greekers game, if you have any thoughts on that game as well, jump in the comments, let me know. Please do subscribe to the channel. Bottom right hand corner there, we were trying to hit 400 by the end of the year, so the next goal is 500 by the end of January. Let's try and really push that. So please do smash a like button on the video, jump in the comments, let me know what you think of the games so far. 2 games at the moment. Sharks well in control against the Greekers, 26 points to 7 there, whilst the Western Province are ahead by 8 points, 17 to 9 against the Cheetahs. 3 very good kicks from Francois Steyn, but a late try by Jakob and some good kicking from Tim Sweel has the Western Province ahead at the moment. Also, the Lions winning against the Pumas earlier wasn't a great game, in all honesty. Lions did not play particularly well, but you know, credit to the Pumas who did push them around. And I think the Pumas are a frustrating team to watch, to be honest, because they've got the capacity, they've got the talent, they've got everything they need. Well, not necessarily they need better players, but I mean, Jimmy Stonehouse is getting a lot out of that squad, much more than I think that people will give him credit for. But the Pumas have had performances and have had sort of 60-minute performances that haven't put together that 80-minute performance to get a win against a big side, which has been the biggest issue. The biggest thing with the Cheetahs is they've got that Francois Steyn boot in their arsenal. When you've got somebody who can nail it over from pretty much anywhere within 60 meters, that helps in a big way because, I mean, 2 penalties and they're right back in the game. So definitely not game done yet in Bloemfontein. In Durban, it could be a bit of a case of collateral control for the Griquas, unless they can try and score nice and early on and try and make a game out of it. But the Sharks look well in control there. The Kanya, I'm getting onto the scoreboard right at the end there. Let's try and dig up some stats from both games and try and have a little bit of a deeper look at what's going on. Maritza Court said, we appear to need bonus point win. They do. I mean, a bonus point victory will put them ahead of the Bulls, which certainly puts a lot of the pressure on the Bulls when they play their game in midweek against the Lions, who are also under a little bit of pressure because the Lions really need to get that bonus, I mean, not the bonus point, but that second place. They want to try and get that home semi-final. So that's been the nice thing. I mean, as we move into the last 2 rounds, almost 2.5 rounds with the Lions and Bulls having to catch up a round 5 clash, all those small things start coming into play. You know, home semi-finals, you know, bonus points. You know, you start having to make decisions which are more than just win every match. It starts becoming about, you know, can you afford to just win the match or do you have to go for bonus points? Right, putting up some stats on the 2 games here. Let's have a bit of a stat attack and see what some of the key performers were in the various sides. I think Jack Kutsil has been quite industrious for the Western Province. You know, a couple of knock-ons, a couple of errors there, but he does look like he's trying very hard. So in the Sharks versus the Griquas game at the moment, 62 possession for the Sharks, 38 possession for the Griquas, 4 tries to 1. So it's been quite a nice high-scoring game there. 2 defenders beaten for the Sharks, 1 by Griquas, 0 clean breaks by the Sharks, 2 from the Griquas. In terms of defense, Sharks have made just 14 tackles, missing just 1, whereas the Griquas have had to make 46 tackles and they've missed 7, which kind of explains the scoreboard there. In terms of the breakdown, rucks won. Sharks winning 62% of their rucks, 36% winning by the Griquas. 4 mauls 1 to 3. Set plays, the Griquas have lost a line out and a scrum, whereas the Sharks have not lost a line-out or a scrum. And in terms of some player stats there, the big meter carriers there, Seekenborg and Noche has made 19 meters with 4 carries. Henko Friend has made 30 meters with 3 carries. Werner Cox, he has been very busy on that right wing, coming in there for Spoon Corsi last weekend. He's made 22 meters in his 3 carries. Upper Fassi's also been running a couple of times. For the Griquas, Edwin Cater has made 21 meters across 4 carries. Stefan Willems has also made 4 carries. In the defense side of things, Gideon van der Merwe, he's always a very hard worker. He's made 7 tackles so far. Andre Swartz at inside center for the Griquas has made 6 tackles. For the Sharks, they haven't had to make a lot of tackles. So Seekenborg and Noche and Yao Penke have each made 3. But apart from that, I think only one other player, Oxenche, has made 2. Everyone else has made just 1. So the Griquas, Johan Mumson, 6 tackles. Devin Willemse, 3 tackles. Gideon van der Merwe, 7 tackles. They've had to work a lot harder on defense. And that will come back to bite them in the end because it just tires you out. If we have to look at the Cheetahs versus Western Province stats, very, very even at the moment. 48% possession for the Cheetahs, 52 for the Western Province. Neither side have had any defenders beaten or clean breaks. If you look at the defense, 19 tackles made by the Cheetahs, 22 tackles made by the Western Province, 5 missed by the Cheetahs. A big one was Ruben de Haas right at the end on Jaco Kutsia. 3 missed tackles from the Western Province. 1 turnover won by the Cheetahs versus 3 by the Western Province. Look at the set plays. They've each lost a line out. And scrums 1, West Province won 4 to the Cheetahs 1, and Cheetahs have lost 3 scrums. So the scrums percent is the Western Province with 80% scrums 1 and 20% for the Cheetahs. In terms of player stats on attack, I mean, there hasn't been too many players who've actually managed to run with the ball. So Rix Pretorius tops the charts with 80 meters with 3 carries. But apart from that, pretty much no meters really to speak of. In terms of defense, Yoshi Yankees has made 3 tackles, as has Johan de Toy, as has Bongi Imbanambi. For the Cheetahs, Roscoe Speckman's made 2, Dries Swanepoel's made 2, Clayton Womake's made 3, but really, I mean, Vilma Arnaldi tops the charts across both sides with 4 tackles, so not much to speak of really there. I mean, the lineouts have been a bit of an issue for the Western Province. The stats might not entirely reflect it, but it hasn't been particularly clean. Quite a few lineouts going over the top, not finding their jumpers, and that's an area they're going to need to improve on. But I think it's important for the Western Province to score early in the second half. I mean, right now they're in the driving seat, they're in control, but you know the Cheetahs can come back very quickly, so they can get points on. Oh, there we go. We've got Ruan Nell on in place of Dan Duplessis, who left the field not looking too great, to be honest. So let's hope that there's nothing too serious there. Looks like he had a cut to the lip as well as probably a bit of a concussion. Right, so let's make sure we get our timer right. Right, Tim Sweel, the Western Province are playing right to left. Maurice van der Best and gets us on the go, and we are off. Tim Sweel kicking very flat and deep. A bit of a strange restart there. But Carl Wegner is there to clean up, and he manages to do that, and that's a good gather from the Cheetahs. Right, so early stages here, 17-9, final score. I'm going to go with 30-15. I think both sides will score. I think it's been quite a low-scoring game so far. I don't see too much of that changing as the Western Province, as the Cheetahs find touch within their half, but up towards the halfway line from Clayton Blommetjies. Let me know what your score predictions are in the comments section. Let's lock it in there. Smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe. We are chasing 500 subscribers by the end of Jan. In fact, let's even try and go for maybe 550. You know, we have had so much support recently, so thank you very much. We're going to be doing live watch-alongs a lot more. Curry Cup's coming to a close a couple of weeks, but we will find a way to keep trying to cover various different sporting events. We've got the Rainbow Cup coming. You can't wait for that. We will be doing in-depth coverage of the Lions Tour. We've got tickets to all 3 tests, so lots coming there. So that's a good contest there from the Cheetahs. The Western Province winning the lineup, but Johan de Toy being chased down there, and the Western Province have been forced back into their own half. So yeah, let's lock in those score predictions in there. Let's put in our let's lock in our final score prediction in the comments so that we can't go back on it. In fact, let's say 30 I'm going to go with 32. 32-15. So let me know what your score predictions are down there. Smash like on the video. The Sharks are back on the field in Durban. They currently lead 26-7. We're going to keep our eyes on both games. Why they're playing at the same time, I don't understand. We could have had the Pumas versus the Lions at 1. We could have had either of these games at 3 and the next game at 5, and it still would have wrapped up by 7 o'clock, which would have been plenty of time to all the staff to get back for curfew. We're going to have the timer off here as Steven Kitsov gets a bit of attention, whilst the Sharks get ready to kick off down in Durban against the Griquas. For the Griquas, Pumas, and potentially the Cheetahs lost 2 games of this weekend, really, whereas the Sharks, Western Province, Lions, and Bulls really are starting to come into sort of the time of the competition where they need to sort out everything in their game. They cannot afford to go into semi-finals with various fragilities or anything like that. So, yeah, so if you look at the log as it currently stands, this is now with both scores as it currently stands. So the Bulls are 35. The Western Province will go level with them, but the Bulls, I mean, their points difference is ridiculous. It's almost twice that of the Western Province. The Lions on 33. Sharks will go level with the Lions on 33. So this game, if the scores stay now, we've got our semi-finalists. It takes the Cheetahs completely out of the running, which means that over the next week and a half, we've got a couple of games. It will be all about getting the home semis, to be honest. There's still lots to play for. Might not be a position in the semi-finals, but where you play the semi-finals is almost as important, especially for the likes of the Lions when you start playing at altitude and stuff like that. And the Bulls will want to make sure they've got a home final or home semi-final, and then if they win that, a home final. As the Western Province get on the front foot off a line-out, they are well into the Cheetahs' half. Sharks look like they've gone straight back to what they were doing in the first half. They were on the front foot as well. Western Province with an advantage. It's a very poor pass there from Herschel Yankees, but Ruan now is in place of Dan du Plessis, who had a bit of a concussion. Has a nice run there. Steven Kitsov once again being used as a ball carrier very often. It was a nice line run by John Augustus, but doesn't take it cleanly at all, and they'll go back for advantage. And I think the Western Province will just kick this over. It's exactly what they want early on. Get points on the board. The Cheetahs won't want that. Yep, and they point to polls immediately. So an early charge for the Western Province to go 11 points ahead. Meanwhile, the Sharks going to have a set piece here. Yeah, offside there from the Cheetahs. So an easy call there for the referee to make. Yeah, so Stuart Berry is not particularly happy with what he's been seeing so far in terms of the penalties. And I think if the Cheetahs don't sort that out, then I think that penalty count might result in a yellow card coming up. And I can go with that. You know, we've seen a lot of yellow cards, and I do want to try and reduce the amount of, or see the amount of yellow cards reduced. But for continuous infringement, you can't really argue too much. As Tim Sweel lines it up. And no issues there. And the Western Province are on the board early in the second half. He's kicked well, Tim Sweel. And I think having Tim Sweel, much like the Pumas, when you got Devin Williams, who might not be the best goal kicker, when you've got Ginter Smuts playing, it means you do have a goal kicker. So having Damian Willemse at fullback means you've got a far half is just a better goal kicker. And I think that has been a bit of an issue with Damian Willemse, maybe having too many responsibilities and not necessarily playing to his strengths. Decent regather here from the Western Province. Meanwhile, the Sharks have stolen the line out from the Griquas. And the Western Province have found touch within their half, but a nice extra strategy there. And that's just the small things, you know. When you win, when you get points on the board, go back regather the kickoff, find touch, reset. That's the main thing. You know, you can't afford to let sides try and hit back immediately, because that's how momentum can shift. But if you're scoring points and you're managing to sort of just keep a 5-minute break before they're even on the attack, then it kind of just makes you feel like you're in charge of the game. And that's poor from the Cheetahs. The pass goes behind Roscoe Speckman, so he has to go back and clean up. Bit of Sevens experience coming in there, so he's done quite well. But the Cheetahs need a bit of inspiration here. Oh, it's a big hit on Wongi Manandi from Kuto Mkuna. And a penalty for the Cheetahs. Yeah, it's within the range of France Stain, so an interesting call to make here. I don't think that they'll go for poles. Wouldn't be the worst idea, you know. Because, I mean, you go for poles here. Yeah, they are going to go for poles. The thinking here, I'm sure, will be just try and get themselves within touching distance. That's the main thing. That's what you've got to do. You know, you put yourselves within touching distance, and you keep playing, and you never know. You know, try and get into the last 10 minutes, and then you have a full crack and see if you can go all the way. So that's the Cheetahs' plan here. They're going to take the points on offer. Okay, so they're going to have to have a bit of a rethink here, because the penalty is actually on the 10-meter line, which is apparently outside of Francois Stain's range. So instead, he takes his boot and he's put that, oh my goodness, he's put that pretty much 8 meters away from the try line. So what was what would have been a difficult penalty attempt has now turned into a very good position for a potential rolling more, or for the Cheetahs to do anything really. They were about 8 meters away from the try line. And if they can hit back, then suddenly they're right back into this game. See, that's what I was talking about earlier. 10 penalties conceded by the Cheetahs, just 5 by the Western Province. And that has been the difference. You know, the discipline for the Cheetahs has been letting them down a bit so far. Meanwhile, the Sharks have scored again. By the way, Sikimbuzi Noche with a great run. And that's a penalty for the Cheetahs for side entry on the more. So they'll probably kick again to the right, and now they'll be able to make up those few meters. So they'll have a line out on the 5 meter as Curran Bosch adds the extras. So let's update that scoreboard for the game down in Durban with the Sharks. This could suddenly get very ugly for the group, because if they don't manage to sort things out. 33 points, 2-7 down in Durban. And that's just, inside, Sikimbuzi Noche goes inside Zach Berger, he goes inside Gideon van der Merwe, and he goes over. No better number 8 in loose play than Sikimbuzi Noche right now. If he starts getting open, he's played 7s for a reason. Very, very good in the loose. Meanwhile, the Cheetahs are trying to get a rolling more here. They've got a bit of momentum, all sort of breaking apart. So where's the ball? And the Western Province have actually turned that over. A big hit from Joano Augustus as the Cheetahs try and pile in. But the Western Province have turned it over, and that's a big moment. And Tim Sweel finds touch. Or does he? Yeah, he does find touch right by the 10-meter line. So Cheetahs are going to take this quickly. And there's space if they can get there. Now, Roscoe Speckman, we know the pace he's got. That's a forward pass. So that's a very brilliant read by Damian Willemse, who came flying up there, and I think has put in a huge hit on Roscoe Speckman. That's a fantastic read. Lots of pace there by Roscoe Speckman. He was going full tilt, and I think Damian Willemse realized that if he didn't get up there and try and force something, it was going to be try time. And Roscoe Speckman panicked basically and has thrown a forward pass. He's gone straight down. Doesn't look very good. So the time is off. Ooh, I wonder if they're going to look at this. Willemse comes flying in, but to be fair, it doesn't offer much of a tackle. And he kind of stands up, and that's not a great collision. And we've seen this before. It almost looks like a head-on collision. And if this is, I reckon we're going to see David Willemse in the bin here. There's no foul play. They checked apparently. Now I prefer that. I must admit. I mean, I think there could have been a case, because I don't think it was the best challenge by David Willemse. So he kind of just sort of stood up and ran into him. But that's where there's a little bit of inconsistency, because we've seen that before and we've seen that given. So I prefer that. I can't say I agree with as soon as there being a collision, but yeah, I mean, he kind of tries to pull out of the challenge, but wasn't particularly safe, I must be honest. And they'll resume with a scrum for the forward pass. And the Greek was just struggling in Durham at the moment. This has been costing them, and the Sharks can, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of subs there quite soon as they reach the sort of 50-minute mark. With 33 points to 7, they've got a nice big scoreline there, and you can already see a couple of subs coming on. Yeah, you can just see the Greek was just a bit out of options there. They go wide to Edwin Cater, who cuts inside. But unfortunately, isolated, and Oxenchair gets over and wins the penalty for them. Meanwhile, we move back to the Cheetahs versus Western Province. We've got a scrum here for Province. And it will be a nice... That's held up. That's not going anywhere, which means that the West Province will have to use it, so they have to get the backline involved. But Tim Swell opts to kick deep. Oh, dear. Now, Ross Speck was made a mess of that, but the quick chase wasn't great, and he's allowed to get away with that, in fact. It was a bit messier from the Cheetahs. They keep going wide. That's well played by Ndisa Nsile, and that's a great pickup. It was forward, though. So Cheetahs just not being, I wouldn't say clinical, but just be a bit safer, you know, but playing very loose, a couple of very sort of, you know, just Hail Mary passes, which aren't really necessary, you know. And when you're still in the game, you don't need to play such a big enterprising and try and be so creative. Just maybe take the touch here. So Ndisa Nsile does very well here, but then tries to throw a pass whilst he's being tackled and adjust forward. Probably would have been better for him to have just taken the contact and try and set up more. Yeah, 6 handling errors from the Cheetahs, 5 to Western Province. Handling hasn't been great. I mean, that's 11 handling errors across the game. So not been the best game, and that's why we have seen so many scrums. First scrum, well, the scrum earlier was reasonably even. Looks like a decent hit there from the Western Province, but the Cheetahs are starting to come through a bit, actually. Davids hadn't had much to do, so he gets a bit of a run off the back of the scrum. And it's a penalty for the Western Province for number 12. That's France stayed offside. He's not happy with that, and I think that this will be the good opportunity for the Western Province to put some points over. Yeah, Tim Swills really got the tee in his hand, and quite an easy decision for them to make there. Now, looking at the replay here, well, I mean, that's not going to show much, to be honest. Yeah, France stayed just never onside. Made the tackle, never got back on side, makes the tackle there. You can complain as much as you want, but that's the right call. And now Tim Swell can now establish a 14-point gap, which suddenly means the Cheetahs can't keep now kicking for poles. Now you're going to have to start going for the try whenever they have got the opportunity. He's turned immediately, and he's added the extras. A nice kick there from Tim Swell. And the Western Province now firmly in charge, as are the Sharks down in Durban. A couple of changes here for the Cheetahs. Right, looks like Tion Meyer is on in place of Ruben de Haas. Not the best game for Ruben de Haas. You know, was shrugged off early, and that was the try. And Cornelia's on for Opamo Hodge. It's good to see him back. Hasn't quite made the impact that I think you probably would have liked. But he is coming back from very long-term injury. So nice to see that he's being eased back relatively slowly, so he can try and get back to his best, because yeah, definitely one of the big players the Cheetahs will want to try and keep for whatever they have planned for their future. So Cheetahs trying to find pick gaps in the Western Province, but the rush defense has been decent. They have got an advantage here as the kick over the top from Eno Smith. Great tackle there from Willemse, but the Cheetahs still have it. Oh, you can get that ball out. Cheetahs running into the 22. He's off his feet there. You can't play that. Yeah, there's an advantage there. Ooh, and Decentia steps around there. This is what the Cheetahs need. They need to score here. Blommetjies comes inside. Roscoe Speckman runs a great line, gets hold of just in front. If they can recycle this, they've got an overlap. Ooh, he's gone inside. Rainer Fontaine. That's probably the wrong decision. I think they might have lost their opportunity there. Yeah, had an advantage. Shouldn't have gone inside. He had the chance. He had numbers outside. Went inside, and Francois Herman managed to get over that and won it with fairly ease. But that's a big chance missed from the Cheetahs. All right, time off here. Now, this doesn't look good for Western Province at all. Damien Phillips is down, clutching his knee. They've already got WATCHALONG ruled out for 9 months with an ACL. This is the last thing that they'll need. Doesn't look too serious. Hopefully he'll be able to continue. I think if there is a bit of doubt about him, subbing him was probably the safer option, although we've already got Ruan now on the field. Very nice play from the Cheetahs, much better. Good recycling, a nice run. Good inside ball here from Clayton Blommetjies to Rocco Speckman, who gets within a few meters. And then, yeah, just ran up Fontaine. I mean, they had players outside him and decides to come inside, and he was very much isolated. But well played by Rainer Smith, who last weekend came on and made a big impact. Nice chip and chase there was what started the move in the first place. And now the Cheetahs will have a 5-meter line-out. So not a bad maul. They're broken off to the side. Fukutam Kuno. He's been driven back though, but it should be a tackle, so they should be able to recycle it. Oh, that looks offside. Yeah, the arm does go up. Western Province is a bit over eager. Oh, there's a bit. It's all getting very messy. Yeah, there's a penalty. So very messy there from the Cheetahs, who had go forward ball from the scrum, and then Kutam Chuno was pushed back. And then the Western Province players just guilty of being a little bit overzealous, came up too early, and that's another penalty. And I think if they keep giving penalties away in the danger zone, they could find themselves with a player in the bench. Meanwhile, for the Sharks, Dylan Richards come on for body, still 33-7 there. Greek was sort of been pinned back within their 22 for the last couple of minutes. Why didn't they separate the games different times? It's hard to watch 2 games at the same time. Yeah, welcome to the struggle. So, yeah, I mean, please bear with me in both the post-match reviews, because I must admit I've been focusing a little bit more on the Cheetahs versus Western Province game. But, yeah, I mean, it was just nonsensical, really. Why? I mean, they could have just gone 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You know, it wouldn't have been difficult. Meanwhile, the Cheetahs are going to go over here, by the way. That's a huge maul, and that's what they've been looking for all game. Obviously, no smile from the coaching staff. Javi's Fourie doesn't smile at the best of times, but that's exactly what the Cheetahs have needed. And they are back in the game with a huge maul. Meanwhile, Gideon van der Merwe to the rescue for the Greek. Was a great rip there from on Oxen Chair. He's been very good. I think you'll see him on the move quite soon. So it was an early shove there by the Western Province, but the backline players came in and kind of just sort of broke off to the left, and there was just nobody there for the Western Province to try and keep that out. And Frans Steyn adds the extras, kicking so well for Poles at the moment. And suddenly we've got a bit of a game on our hands. Meanwhile, the Greek is trying to make a game of it down in Durban as they try and carry it up, but Dylan Richardson is on and looks like he might have had a steal at his first contribution. All right, let's get this clock sorted out. Right, but the Sharks are back on the attack. This is some lovely hands there. Inside to Fassi. Great offloads. The Kanya. And this is the problem, is the Sharks have just been so good in the loose so far, and the Greek's defense just hasn't been able to cope. And we've already seen a tackle off the ball there. Sukamuza cuts inside. A little dab over the top from Curran Bosch. But they've got the penalty advantage there. Right, meanwhile, the Cheetahs have managed to regather that from the kickoff, and they found touch pretty much by the halfway line. So a nice regather. That's important because they'll now feel that they've got a bit of a momentum. And if they can just make sure they keep them top and not let the Western Province back into the game for the next few minutes, if they score next, suddenly it's completely, the momentum shift has probably gone the way of the Cheetahs, and they can definitely get back into this game as we approach the last sort of 22 minutes left. A little dab over the top from Tim Sweel. I haven't seen too much of that. A bit of ingenuity. But here we go. This is the problem. Clayton Blommetjies has got inside. And Roscoe Speckman, he's going to go all the way. You're not going to catch him. Oh, they've been brought back. No, he's celebrating. He was celebrating early. He's happy there. That is game on by the Cheetahs. Roscoe Speckman goes in. And there was a bit of a weird tactic. And I said so. We hadn't seen that yet. But Tim Sweel kicked over the top. And Clayton Blommetjies, nice little take. He turned and Roscoe Speckman was away. And listen, you're not going to catch Roscoe Speckman, one of the fastest players out there. Electric pace. As Clayton Blommetjies literally just drop kicked the... Okay, so Stuart Berry wants to go back and check. Clayton Blommetjies trying to take the drop goal quickly so that it doesn't, and they can't go back and check. Meanwhile, the Sharks are camped on the Griquas try line, but they have forced a scrum. And the Griquas have actually defended quite resiliently in the second half. They haven't had much of the ball. Sharks been all over them, but credit to them. The Griquas play with a lot of heart. Right, no issues there from the check. Francois Steyn adds the extras, and suddenly we are level in Bloemfontein. Well, there goes my score prediction because I had said 32-15. So that's out the equation. So yeah, as we reach the last 20 minutes, game on, and it's just... I just don't think it was the right option. There was really no need for that. You know, try and keep it tight. But instead, they kicked it over the top. The kick chase was all right, but there was a lot of space. And as soon as Clayton Blommetjies turned inside, there was nobody ahead of him. And Roscoe Speckman just took advantage of that. And once again, a nice regather from the Cheetahs, who are, as I said, momentum has definitely switched towards them. A draw doesn't do anything for the Cheetahs, though. So they do have to be the braver of the sides. As Franz Steyn puts his boots, that is a monstrous kick. That is from his 22, and that is, what, about 10 yards away from the Western Province 22. Just over the 10-meter line, apparently, is where the officials have said it's gone through. I think it's probably a bit closer, to be honest. But suddenly, game on, and this is the thing. Confidence does a very, very strange thing, and at the moment, it's all Cheetahs at the moment. And Western Province need to calm a bit of a storm here, because if they don't, then it could go either way. Both coaches looking equally stressed there down the bottom there. Now Western Province trying to get a bit of momentum from more. It's broken apart, but yeah, well done by the Cheetahs who managed to come through the middle there. And yeah, it's a bit of a nothing more there from the Western Province. Got a bit of momentum, but not much. Yeah, so I mean, for a team which has used the maul so much and to great effect, it hasn't really worked for them so far this today. And I think that's been a bit of the issue. The lineouts have been pretty poor from the Western Province across the way. Where's Spoon Corsi Madosh Tambwe? I still haven't managed to find out exactly what the issue with Spoon Corsi was. I was trying to find it last weekend. Madosh Tambwe, as far as I understand, is around. Just haven't been sort of favouring him yet. But Spoon Corsi was a late withdrawal last weekend, which is why Werner Koch came into the lineup in the first place. He wasn't due to play. And we've got a reset here in Bloemfontein. 18 minutes to go. A draw, as I said, a draw does nothing for the Cheetahs. They have to go for all 4 points, or all 5 points, really, ideally. Meanwhile, the Sharks are on the 5-meter line. Dan Juster was on the field. And that looks like it's going to be very... Oh, has it been held up? No, it's been a try. Very well played by the Sharks. And that's intelligent. That's what you call adapting your game, because the Griquas were fronting it up front, you know, and they were weathering the storm, and they were keeping the Sharks at bay. So what the Sharks decided to do is shift the point of contact to the left, and Dylan Richardson goes through. A very good player, very much in your face. You're quite a confrontational player, but it's very well done. Yeah, I mean, off the left, he's just completely come with too much momentum and too much power, and he's gone straight over there. Right, so a penalty here for the Cheetahs. Tinswheel caught offside as we update the scoreboard for the Sharks game. Take that up to 38 points. They've got 18 minutes left to play down in Durban. Meanwhile, Francois Steyn is going to kick for poles here, and he could potentially kick his side into the lead. That's not the right time. Right, so once again, these games are sort of sinking up. Francois Steyn kicking a penalty to put the Cheetahs in the lead, whilst Cohen Bosch is lining a penalty to try and take it to 40 points. The Sharks currently got a bonus point against the Griquas. That was the bonus point try there from Dylan Richardson, who's just come on the field. No issue there for Francois Steyn. Meanwhile, Cohen Bosch says, anything you can do, I can do better, as he nails that on the side there. So the Cheetahs up to 26-23, whilst the Sharks are up 40 points to 7. It's all happening in the Currie Cup at the moment. A very strange experience having both games on at the same time, but hey, we have to adapt with the times. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe as well. We are trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of Jan. We hit our goal of hitting 400 by the end of the year, so now we want to try and take that a little bit further. Right, so nice opportunity by the Western Province here. Cheetahs kicked it ahead, and Joanna Augustus has got the Western Province into the half. But some good rush defense by the Cheetahs, but here we go. Ruan Null doesn't always have the pace. He's knocked that on, actually, so that's not what the Western Province would have needed or wanted. Right, it's time off here. I'm not quite sure what they want to go back and look at. Right, so we're reviewing foul play for a potential shoulder charge. I think it's on Angela Davids. It did look like quite a big challenge, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Right, so Ruan now knocks it on there. Angela Davids chasing hard, kicks it ahead. And now checking for foul play. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a penalty, I think. I mean, Clayton Blommetjies runs through and sticks a shoulder into him. I don't think it's foul play. It's not dangerous. So it could be a penalty here for the Western Province, which will be poor by Clayton Blommetjies, because it'll be a bit needless. So it's a knock on by Ruan now. Angela Davids kicks it ahead. And Clayton Blommetjies watches him, and then puts a shoulder into him. It's shoulder to shoulder, so it's not shoulder to head, so I don't think you have to worry too much about head collisions or anything like that. It's silly by... Okay, so yeah, they've said it's a late charge. They said there's no malice to it. So it looks like it's going to be a penalty only. Yeah, it's a bit poor there by Clayton Blommetjies. And that's the right decision. It was foul play. There was no need for it. You know, Washington, all they've done, and this is interesting now, though, the Western Province are going to go for the line. They're not going to take the points. Meanwhile, the Griquas have hit back here. Nice bit of play there from Gideon van der Merwe. He deserves it. He's worked very hard for the Griquas all game. And he gets over. So it's all happening in the various games. This is the problem with trying to watch two at the same time. So this is a big call by the Western Province. They could have taken the points and gone level, but they've decided to go for the line. The maul has disjointed a little bit, but they've broken off and they have scored. So it pays off for them. They took the risk and it's paid off. The Western Province are back in front with 14 minutes to play. Bongi Mbanambi, the man with the ball, he can see how much that means to him. And a big call, and that goes down to Clayton Blommetjies. If the Cheetahs lose this game by the score line, he will have a lot to account for because it was just a needless challenge. There was no need for it whatsoever. And he's just offered the Western Province a way back into the side. Dana Stamen says, what team do you support in the Currie Cup? I'm a Lions fan, so we'll be back live on Wednesday for the Bulls-Lions game, which will be very interesting. Not the best performance from the Lions today, but hopefully they can get back to... Ooh, that's a horrible kick there from the Griquas. It's Ashlyn Davids there. That's not a particularly good one. It won't be one to remember anyway. But yeah, so we'll be live again on Wednesday for Bulls versus the Lions. A nice Yuxke derby. It was a nice game last time between the two. So hopefully another good contest in the week to come. As Tim Sweel lines up his 9th kick of the day. 6 out of 8 so far for him. And that is not a great kick. So it will stay at 28-26. Both sides still in the game as you move into the last 13 minutes. Yeah, looks like Bongi Mbanambi's game has come to an end. He's been very good. Always very good. Very consistent. Loves the challenge. Loves the physicality side of it. And just, he's everywhere. And also such a leader and such a big personality to have. It demands a lot of his players. You know, whenever you sort of pick up on mics and stuff like that, he's somebody that demands a lot from his side. That's a good chase there by the Cheetahs, but the Western Province have kept it alive. And let's update that for the Griquas score as well, because that is now 12 points for them. Right, so down to 11 minutes to go in pretty much both games. Still lots to play for in Bloemfontein. The Cheetahs need to win this if they are to keep their Currie Cup hopes alive. Need to get a win on the board. The Western Province need to see this out. Meanwhile, the Sharks, the Griquas are a bit of... There we go. The Griquas are on attack here. Johan Momsen with a nice carry there. No time for the Griquas to win the match, but certainly time for them to try and get a bit of reputation. Oh, no, that's poor. And as we say that, it's gone forward. So, Cheetahs on their head. The dab at the top, it's a nice read from Ruan Nel. From the looks of it, was a Tim Sweel. And now they're going to kick and chase. Speckman's back though. Oh, he decides to run. Now, oh, that looks like a high tackle. No, it was a good tackle, fair tackle. Cheetahs looking to keep this alive. Running from their own half. It's brave. It's brave, but sometimes fortune favors the brave. What time does the Bulls Lions game kick off? I don't know, because it was supposed to kick off at 7, but it can't with lockdown regulation. So a new time hasn't been released yet. My thinking would be it would be a 5 o'clock kickoff. Would make the most sense for me. So it's done by 7 and everybody can be out there by 8. Right, the Cheetahs try going through the phase. A nice run there by Clayton Blommetjies. He's played well today. And a penalty there. And it's taken quickly. And Tiam... Oh no, he's left it behind. He's left it behind. Oh, it was the perfect thought. Took it quickly and they were through with the inside ball to Randall Smith. It wasn't great and it's a knock-on. It was a nice idea from the Cheetahs. It's taken a while, but suddenly this game has really, really picked up. Right, 10 minutes. 26-28 at the moment. All to play for the Cheetahs. Do they have enough in the bank to try and get a result here? Handling area 7 for Cheetahs, Western Province 5. Hasn't been great. Meanwhile, the Sharks looking for, I think, their 5th try of the game so far against the Griquas. As we've got a reset show. Alright, Curran Bosch kicks it behind. It's a nice kick that'll run out there. Good game management, Curran Bosch. He's played well today, actually, for the Sharks. But a nice game. Right, 9 minutes left in Bloemfontein. Cheetahs need to get a victory. They need to find a way to score the points. All they need is a penalty here. Penalty here will be right in front of the poles. If there was ever a time for the Cheetahs front row to try and win a penalty, this is it. And there it is. That's exactly what they needed. You can see how much it means by Jean-Andre Rudolph. Some subs for the Cheetahs, and they've won a huge penalty. This is them keeping their Currie Cup hopes alive. That is a huge scrum by Bowen Venter. He deserves that. Game on in Bloemfontein. This is what we want. Oh, and I'll tell you what we don't want is Greek was just gifting Marty Liebach a try. Intercept there. The Sharks go 45-12 up. Oh, it is a forward pass there from the looks of it, so it won't count. But not great there by the Griquas. Yeah, so knock on in the line out there. Right, so Francois Steyn will kick for goal here to try and send the Cheetahs into the lead. That's another good kick. They're back in the lead. 1 point, 8 minutes. Can they do it? This is the question. They have to do it. If they want to stay in the Cheetahs, if they want to stay in the Currie Cup, the Cheetahs have to do this. They have to get a win here. Right, so bravery for the Western Province paid off when they went for the line there, but the Cheetahs have hit back. Good chase there, but a good take by Clayton Blommetjies. Now the Cheetahs need to manage this game very, very intelligently. Whilst the Sharks have just run in another try. And it's Upler Fassi. That's the one you want to play. Injured for a long time. He's back. He's over. And it's just the pressure. A cross kick there from Ashlyn Davids. And Upler Fassi read that like a book. Grabbed it. He goes over. No issues there whatsoever. And that really is getting a bit ugly down in Durban. Right, meanwhile, Chad Solomon is on for the Western Province. Wasn't supposed to play, it was supposed to be Scarra Intabeni, but he has been drafted in. Western Province with a big opportunity here. They've got a line out inside their half. And that was not straight. That's not what you want. Big moment in the game there. Chad Solomon will be kicking himself. Now, can the Cheetahs do it again? A penalty here, and they can kick towards the corner and keep the Western Province back in their own half. That's what they need to do. Meanwhile, Curran Bosch lining up for another kick. He's kicked well all afternoon. Right, Frans Malherbe is off here. Net Limpoche is on in place of him. As is Herschel Yankees. He's also off. Paul de Vet is on in place of him as well. So, meanwhile, Curran Bosch has once again slotted that brilliant kick there from the Sharks flower half as they can move on to 45 points to 12. That's the way they needed to come back. After a couple of poor performances, to go and run in so many tries, it's a nice tries. You know, the Griquas weren't as bad as the scoreline might predict. And they, look, I mean, they weren't great, to be honest. But they tried hard and they were good in the defense, but they lack a bit of creativity on the attack and they're just too error-ridden, really. But a couple of Griquas players who really do play well. Genie van der Merwe has been impressive all season, as has Zach Berger. But all our attention right now is in Bloemfontein as the Cheetahs try and protect what would be a huge victory for them. Victory for the Cheetahs puts them at 30 points. That puts them 1 point behind the Western Province and keeps the Currie Cup alive. Meanwhile, Cheetahs trying to go for the attack, but Roscoe Speckman has been taken out. Oh, sorry, Clayton Blomke has been taken into touch inside the Western Province half, which the Cheetahs won't mind. Less than 5 minutes to play. They just need to see out this at the moment. That keeps them alive. I mean, the Lions suddenly need to win the game against the Bulls, because the Lions currently sit on 33 points. And they don't play in the last week. So, yeah, it's all. I mean, it's been a fantastic Harry Cup, to be honest. And the Cheetahs now playing for a place to keep themselves alive. If the Western Province do win this, that will be the Cheetahs pretty much done. So, really is all to play for. Alright, so I meant to stop the clock there because Sergio Peterson was down and receiving some treatment. So we're actually at 75, 35. Right, so the Western Province, they need to do something here. And as a Lions fan, I need them to do something here. Because if they win this, that's pretty much that's the Cheetahs gone. So the Cheetahs, with less than 5 minutes to play, hanging on for a place, well, to remain in the Currie Cup. Can they do it? Right, so we've got Marnie Consalves saying, come there, Cheetahs. Chris is saying, go Western Province. Edge of the seat stuff here as Cheetahs kick the ball very far down. Meanwhile, the Griquas are over for a try themselves. I mean, it's just a bit chaotic down there. They didn't have a check on it, but I mean, it's been a very weird game in Durban. Less than 4 minutes in Bloemfontein. Can the Cheetahs hold out, or can the Western Province pretty much do the three big teams all a favor? Western Province win here means that the semi-final positions are sorted. They are finished, basically. Because Province will go up to 34, Lions are on 33, the Sharks will go to 33, and the Cheetahs will be on, even with the bonus points, 27, which means the most they can get is 32, which will not be enough to get a place in the semi-final. So if you're a Sharks fan, if you're a Lions fan, if you're a Bulls fan, you're all wanting the Province to do something here. If you're a neutral, you probably want the Cheetahs to hold on and to make it interesting. Solid defense here from the Cheetahs so far, but the Western Province are... Great read there by Roscoe Speckman. Sergio Peterson now going to have to try and do something by himself. He's got not much space to move. He has kept it in, though. It's a knock-on for the Western Province. They will have a scrum as the time runs down. Meanwhile, the Griquas have scored down there. A bit of a consolation try there. So, I mean, it's a ridiculously high-scoring game. Over 60 points down in Durban. But our focus has always been in Bloemfontein. And Gideon van der Merwe is going to find himself in the team of the week. He's been terrific for the Griquas. Right, so a big scrum here by the Western Province. Well, for the Western Province. Less than 2 minutes. They need to do something here. I mean, if the Western Province don't get a win here, then they're under a lot of pressure. If you look at the matches, the Bulls versus the Lions in midweek, Western Province will play the Sharks. So, you know, and the Sharks just thrashed the Griquas. So the Western Province will host the Sharks and will be a must win. Bulls versus Pumas, so you kind of are backing the Bulls, and the Cheetahs have the Griquas there, and you can see how stressful it is on John Dobson. He does not want to go to the Sharks and try and get a victory there. He wants to try and wrap this up a place in the semi-final right now. In terms of being able to rest players, in terms of being able to, you know, play for a potential home semi-final, it all comes down to whether they can score points in the last minute here. It's a good scrum by Western Province, and they've got a penalty now. Decision time for the Western Province. What do they do? Yep, the T's come out. This could be heartbreaking for the Cheetahs. If this goes over, the Cheetahs will be out of the Currie Cup. If this doesn't go over, it suddenly means the semi-finals are alive and well, and we're going to have to move on to next week to find out who will be the final four. In Durban, it's pretty much wrapped up. Just 40 seconds left. Sharks 47, Greek was 19. This is a huge kick from Tim Sweel. We saw a pressure kick like this by the Bulls where they missed it and the Sharks managed to win. How important is that result now? As Gideon van der Merwe continues to bash it up for the Greek, he's been terrific. And it goes, and it's over. That is it. The Cheetahs are out of the Currie Cup. As the hooter went over, it sails over. Tim Sweel is the hero. That is the Cheetahs gone. The big four, they were back for the Rainbow Cup. SA Rugby said that they were the ones, they were the best players, they were the best teams. You can see what it means for the Cheetahs. That is them out of the Currie Cup. A huge effort for them. You know, heartbreaking as a Cheetahs fan because they really, I'm not saying, not that they don't, other teams don't deserve, but the Cheetahs, it's a hard way to go. It really is a hard way to go. They played so well all game, kept themselves in the game, and just right on the strike of 80 minutes, that has been them out of the Currie Cup. So heartbreaking. Obviously, he can't believe it, but yeah, that's how the game goes sometimes. And it was a fantastic game to watch. 31 points to 29 is how it finishes. Down in Durban, 47 points to 19. Please, right now, stop what you're doing. Smash a like, subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing more live watch-alongs. We'll be live next week, Wednesday, with Lions versus Bulls. We'll be live next weekend with Sharks versus Western Province. So make sure you smash the like, subscribe to the channel, and keep it locked on Forever Sports. My name is Stephen, and I'll chat to you all very, very soon. Post-match